What's up, everybody, and welcome back to what is a special edition of the Sam's Report, mostly because we got some good stuff to talk about today, and I didn't want to wait until Friday, and I'm going to be posting a bunch of stuff here, and I want the video to align with the content, and let's just dive in, shall we? So there's a bunch of Microsoft hardware that is on the horizon. We already know one of Andromeda, but I got some sensitive information from, it's a good source, and was able to verify all of it. And so let's just kind of talk about what's on the hardware horizon for Microsoft. And now, granted, this is not all encompassing. Some things might change, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. But I'm feeling pretty good about most of this stuff and the time. So let's start on the Xbox side. So I wrote about some stuff earlier this week saying, hey, there's a thing called Xbox Scarlet. Now I know when it's coming. It is coming in 2020. Now, granted, that is the expected timeline, right? They put in a date down saying this is when we want to launch the hardware. Let's hope it gets there. The interesting thing is the documents that I was able to view actually called it a family of devices. Now, what I'm curious about here is Microsoft has talked about a streaming service, and we now know that there's hardware coming in the 2020, and people are like, I know someone's going to say that's too soon. But you got to remember, Phil Spencer is changing things up. He's doing things under his own way. He's kind of throwing out that old console model of every 5 to 7 years. We saw how quickly things went from the Xbox to the Xbox One S to the Xbox X. And I fully expect that this is going to be marching down that same path. The question is everything going to be backwards compatible? I think it has to be. They've really been pushing this, and so we don't know what the architecture is going to be like. We're still pretty far away from them revealing that information. I mean, maybe next year they'd start talking about it, but definitely not. I would be very surprised this year. All they said on stage is, hey, we're deep into development. We know it's coming, and now I've got the date. It's in the year 2020, and you can probably speculate that that's probably around the latter half, because they typically launch consoles in the October-November timeframe for the holiday shopping season. And so Xbox Scarlet family of devices. I want to point that out. They called it a family of devices. So I don't know if that means more than one or what, but it definitely sounds that way, is coming in the year 2020. Now, moving on to the next portion, Surface Pro 6. Now, currently Microsoft doesn't call it the Surface Pro 5. They call it the Surface Pro. We are going to be talking about what's coming after that, is codenamed Carmel, Carmel. I don't have a launch date for that, but Microsoft said it is pivotal to the long-term success of the brand. They're obviously going to be updating it. The only thing that's kind of in the back of my mind is that they just launched the LTE variant of the Surface Pro, so it might not be for a little bit. They didn't have a timeline for that one. But then there's also a new product called Surface Tablet Libra. So the Surface Tablet is codenamed Libra, Libra. And I believe here that this is the same thing that Bloomberg reported that said is coming in 2018. It's just a lower priced entry-level Surface branded tablet. Kind of think of a Surface 3 successor. My guess is kind of the Chrome OS tablet education market type scenario, iPad-ish competitor, but that is codenamed Libra. Basically, all the details around that align to exactly what Bloomberg had. So if you go read their stuff, everything that I have in my not in my possession, actually everything that I saw aligns to that information. Now, the next big one, which I've been talking about for a while, and it kind of reiterates the fact, is HoloLens V Next. It is coming in Q1 of 2019. This aligns perfectly to the information I leaked about a year ago. The only reason I bring that up is that it's just still on track for a Q1 2019 release, and the code name for that product is Sydney. So that's Microsoft's next-gen HoloLens is Sydney, and again, I've heard this from a couple different people. And so we've got that going on, and it's just basically everything you would expect. Lighter, better battery life, improved graphical displays and field of view, and a much lower price point. You got to remember, Microsoft, I've done a couple podcasts about this, they're developing this thing in broad daylight. They already showed us the Kinect sensor that's going to be included. They've already talked about the next generation light engine, and so basically what we're missing is a price point and what it physically looks like, but it's probably not too hard to adapt what you look at the current HoloLens and modify it for a newer generation. That thing is getting pretty old at this point, but Microsoft's going to continue to offer it right up until this. But the question is, when did they reveal this next V Next? If they want it to be available in Q1, are they going to seed it to developers? I think they would, right? Because again, they want to generate that hype, get it in developers' hands, get some new experiences. And so we might potentially see that in the second half of 2018. And I'll explain why we might be seeing we could potentially be seeing a major media event in the second half of 2018, but nothing confirmed on that front yet. And then, of course, Andromeda was mentioned in this content that I was able to view. And here's the interesting thing. It says a release date of 2018, which is this year. And so we're looking at a pocketable device. Also in the documentation says that OEM partners are also going to release similar devices. Now, if you go back and look at Computext, Intel announced or showed off a prototype dual screen folding device, much like we think of Andromeda. Microsoft notes that they believe this is going to be a pocketable design. So it's going to kind of bridge that area of smartphone and PC. I still think they're waiting for that killer use case on this thing. But it did say that they were targeting a launch of 2018, which means everything is enrolling in place so that they could be announcing it this year. We've already seen tons and tons and tons of patents come out. And then just a little final thing here before we dive into some other stuff. Aruba, which I believe might have been the name of the codename for Surface Hub 2, which was mentioned in this content, was coming in 2019, but Microsoft's already announced that. And so here's the big overarching caveat on all this. This content was created under Terry Myerson, right? And we all know Terry Myerson is now leaving. So there's new leaders in place, and all of this could be changed because you have new heads of not new heads of design, but you have new leadership of the former Windows Devices group. And so they could come and say, like, you know what? We're going to crop all that and kill some things, and we're not going to do it. I don't see that happening to the Surface Pro 6 or even the tablet at this point, or even HoloLens. The biggest one is Andromeda. Andromeda, at the time this content was created, was expected to launch in 2018. We all know that Microsoft will kill things last minute. Look at the Surface Mini. And so, yes, Andromeda's pegged for a 2018 release, which means that everything prior to that was leading up to a release so that it'll be ready this year. It's just whether or not Microsoft is going to pull the trigger and actually release the product. So, quick recap here. Xbox 2020, that is the Scarlet family of devices. We have Surface Pro 6 Caramel, and then we have a Surface tablet named Libra. HoloLens VNext coming in Q1 of 2019, and Andromeda potentially very much coming this year. And there's a couple things that people are going to point out, not mentioned. One, Surface Laptop. Surface Laptop was mentioned but was not listed with a specific release date. I do believe that they're going to update that at some point. Microsoft talks about it being a pivotal product in the same caliber as the Surface Pro. Now, one thing that was not mentioned in any capacity was the Surface Studio, this thing right behind me. I can't see Microsoft just abandoning the product yet. I really don't, but it may not just be a priority. And so I do hope that this thing gets updated and refreshed because I quite like it. But it was not mentioned. That's not saying it's not going to happen. There could be other documents that I just wasn't shared or shown to me, and it could fall into that. So I wouldn't write off the Studio. Please don't write a headline that Surface Studio is canceled, delayed, or whatever. That is absolutely furthest from the truth because there's a lot of stuff floating around inside the world of Microsoft. And so these are kind of the code names to be watching. There could be other hardware components not mentioned in this documentation, but this is kind of a really good look and gives us rough timelines of when products are coming, especially the Libra tablet, the Caramel. The Xbox stuff is very super interesting, and then reaffirming that HoloLens VNext is still on track for Q1 2019 release is all good news for everybody involved. And so I just wanted to make a quick little video about this because I know some people prefer it in this format than to reading the posts that I write. And so there you go. That is a wrap up of the Microsoft hardware roadmap, of at least of the content that I was able to view for the next couple of years. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and we'll catch you right back here next time.